I knew something was wrong the moment she smiled and didn't look at me. We were standing under a string of golden lights in the middle of a quiet park. Just the two of us, a violinist a few steps away, and the soft hum of distant traffic. I had rehearsed every word in my head for days. Practiced the bend of my knee, the timing of the music, the little joke I'd start with to break the nerves. I was going to ask her to be my wife. But when I finally looked up, expecting tears or laughter or just something, she was texting. I'm not talking about a quick glance or a one-handed reply. I mean fully immersed, both thumbs tapping like the moment didn't matter. Like the months I spent planning this surprise, the family I'd asked for blessings, the ring tucked in my pocket. None of it registered. I tried to laugh it off at first. Am I interrupting something? I joked, my voice shaky but warm. She didn't even look up. Just murmured, 1 second. That was the second crack. The first, if I'm being honest, came 3 months earlier. We were at a friend's engagement party, and when someone made a toast about love and timing, she clinked her glass and whispered under her breath, "Not everyone gets the timing right." I'd asked her what she meant, and she brushed it off, said it was nothing. I let it go, but it stayed with me. So did the way she started checking her phone in the middle of our conversations, or how she started pulling away during long hugs, like she was always halfway somewhere else. Love doesn't vanish overnight, but presence does. And when presence fades, doubt fills the space it used to occupy. I ignored it. That night in the park, though, something deeper stirred in me. I paused mid-sentence. I hadn't even gotten to the part about how I loved the way her laugh cracked when she was truly surprised. How I'd known I wanted to marry her the first time I saw her dance alone in our kitchen, completely unself-conscious, twirling a wooden spoon and singing off-key. I'd been about to say all of that. Instead, I stood there, blinking at her illuminated face as her thumbs kept moving. The violinist, sensing the awkward pause, slowed his playing. And in that sudden stillness, I took one step closer, close enough to glance down at her phone. She didn't notice. And maybe I wish I hadn't either. Her screen was still lit. A group chat. Bubbles of text flashing like emergency lights. He's doing it. A pause. Then another. Help me say no. That's when time stopped. I didn't speak. Didn't finish the sentence I'd started. I just slowly pulled the ring box out of my pocket, looked at it, then tucked it back into my coat. My heart should have been racing, but it wasn't. It was slow. Steady. Heavy. She finally looked up and saw me staring at her. There was a flicker in her expression. Shock? Guilt? Panic? I don't know. But whatever it was, it came too late. I didn't make a scene. Didn't demand an explanation. I just nodded once, turned around, and started walking. She called my name once. Not loudly. Just enough that I knew she wasn't going to follow me. Not really. Not in the way people do when they're afraid they've lost something they love. I walked until I couldn't hear the violin anymore. Until the air felt colder. Until I was far enough from the park that no one would see the way my hands started to shake. I took a seat on a bench near the river and stared at the water, barely noticing the couple laughing on the next bench over. I sat there for an hour, maybe 2. I wasn't thinking about what she'd said or who she'd said it to. I just kept picturing her face when she looked up, and didn't look surprised to see me walking away. She knew. She had known long before I did that something inside her heart had shifted. That the story we were writing had ended a few chapters back, and she was too afraid, or too unsure, to close the book. That's what hurt the most. Not that she said no, but that she needed help saying it. That I was standing in front of her, pouring out everything I had left to give, and she had already decided. She just didn't want to be the one to say it out loud. Later that night, I got a message from her. Just 5 words. Can we talk about it? But I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to talk. Not about what I saw. Not about what it meant. I wasn't even ready to feel it yet. Instead, I walked the long way home, past closed shops and sleeping houses. I thought about how much of love is unseen. How you can spend years loving someone and still not see the moment they stop loving you back. I didn't cry that night. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it hadn't hit me fully yet. That would come later. And when it did, it would take more than silence to survive it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling as her words replayed in my head. Not the ones she said out loud, because she hadn't said much, but the ones I'd read over her shoulder. Help me say no. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't nerves. That was a confession, passed through digital hands before I even bent my knee. and it meant someone else had already known I was going to propose. Someone close enough for her to text in real time. Someone she trusted more than me in that moment. I imagined her friend, probably grinning behind a phone screen, maybe sipping wine, waiting to hear how she handled letting me down gently. I wondered if they laughed about it later. The next morning, I saw her name light up my phone again. Please talk to me. Still, I didn't answer. I needed space, not just to think, but to feel. Because I'd spent months preparing to ask her to spend her life with me, and now I couldn't figure out if I even knew who she really was. You don't walk away from someone you love that easily. But maybe that's the thing. We didn't walk into this love at the same pace to begin with. I took a drive out to the coast that day. Needed to breathe somewhere that didn't smell like memory. The cliffs were empty, the air sharp. I sat on a bench overlooking the water and finally allowed myself to start asking the questions I hadn't let surface. When had she stopped loving me? Was it after that fight in February, the one where I told her I felt like she was slipping away and she said I was being dramatic? Was it during those weekends she spent with old friends and came back smelling like hotel soap and a perfume I didn't recognize? Or maybe it was gradual, one quiet withdrawal at a time, until I was the only one still reaching across the space between us. I thought about the little signs. The way she stopped asking about my day. How she started sleeping facing the other way. Her phone always face down. The password change. The polite laughter that replaced the real kind. I'd seen it. I just didn't want to believe what I was seeing. We all want to believe that love is enough. That if you give your best, if you show up, if you stay faithful and generous and true, it'll come back to you. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes love is a mirror, and when one person stops showing up, the reflection breaks. I had spent so long looking at her through the lens of the man I was trying to be, I never stopped to realize she had already turned away. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, a longer message. You caught me off guard. I didn't know how to react. It wasn't what I expected. Can we please meet? I need to explain. She needed to explain. But something about that word, needed, rubbed me wrong. Because I didn't need anything. Not anymore. I had made peace, or at least the first step toward it, by walking away without saying a word. But I also wasn't made of stone. So I agreed to meet. We chose a quiet café 2 neighborhoods away, somewhere neutral, far from the park, far from our apartment. She showed up late, hair pulled back, eyes tired. Not in the way you look after a sleepless night, but the kind of tired that comes from wrestling with guilt and not liking what you find on the other side. I stood when she walked in. Old habits die hard. She didn't hug me. We sat. She ordered tea. I ordered nothing. I just waited. She started slow. I wasn't planning to say no. I didn't answer. She tried again. I didn't mean for you to see the message. I panicked. I didn't expect you to propose last night. I finally spoke. But you told someone you needed help saying no. She looked down at her hands. It was stupid. I was nervous. I didn't know what I wanted. There it was. The truth hiding in the spaces between words. You didn't know if you wanted to marry me. She didn't deny it. Just nodded slowly. And that hurt more than I expected it to. I wasn't angry. Not in the way people think betrayal feels. I was just hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything I'd been building inside for years and left the shell intact. You could have told me, I said, voice low. You could have said you weren't sure. You didn't have to make me find out like that. She wiped under her eyes. I didn't know how. There's a pause in every heartbreak where your soul decides whether it will forgive or fracture. I sat in that pause for a long time. I think you did, I said finally. And then, softer, you just didn't care enough to stop me before I got on one knee. She didn't argue. She just nodded, and that silence, that agreement, hurt more than any excuse ever could have. A week later, I found the ring in my coat pocket and couldn't bring myself to open the box. It had been there, wrapped in navy velvet, just a few inches from her that night. So close. My thumb had grazed the edge of it during dinner. I remember sitting there watching her laugh at some story I can't recall anymore, thinking, this is it. This is the moment I'll remember for the rest of my life. I wasn't wrong. I just didn't know how differently it would end. I kept the ring on my desk for 3 more days after our cafe conversation. I thought about returning it. I thought about throwing it into the river. I even thought, briefly, about proposing to someone else one day. But none of it felt right. What do you do with a symbol of a promise never made? That Saturday, I packed it away in the back of a drawer. No dramatic gesture. No closure note. just tucked it into silence, the same way I'd walked away from her. That's the thing about heartbreak. It's not always loud. It doesn't always come crashing down like thunder or scream in your face like a bad movie climax. Sometimes, it just sits beside you. Quiet. Familiar. Heavy. Like a coat you forgot to take off. The messages stopped after that. She never called again. I guess we both understood what hadn't been said over that cafe table. She didn't love me the way I loved her. And maybe she never did. That thought haunted me for a while. Not because it made her a villain, but because it made me question my own eyes. How could I have mistaken her silence for comfort? Her distance for independence? Her hesitation for humility? It's hard to admit that you loved someone who wasn't truly with you. It's even harder to realize you stayed because you believed love could fix the parts that were already breaking. I started therapy a few weeks after. Not because I was drowning, but because I didn't want to. I wanted to understand what in me kept reaching for people who didn't reach back. I wanted to learn what love looked like when it was healthy, mutual, and consistent. Not theatrical, not performative, not dependent on guessing games and mixed signals. And what I learned, slowly, over months of digging through the rubble, was this. Love doesn't require a stage. It doesn't demand a perfect speech. Love is quiet presence, honest communication. It's showing up fully, every day, even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy. That day in the park, I showed up with my whole heart in my hands. She showed up with a phone in hers. I don't hate her. I want to be clear about that. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I don't wish her pain or regret or punishment. I wish her clarity. I hope she finds someone she doesn't need to text for help when her heart's on the line. As for me, I found peace in the walking away. I thought the proposal would be the start of our life together. But it turned out to be the beginning of something else entirely. It was the day I finally learned to stop convincing someone to stay. It was the day I realized that love, real love, doesn't ask you to beg. And maybe, just maybe, it was the day I started saying yes to myself. The ring is still in that drawer. I don't look at it often. But when I do, I don't feel pain anymore. Just a kind of quiet gratitude. Because that little box didn't just hold a question. It held an answer, too. And I finally heard it.